guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Paige and this is my open book. In today's video we're gonna do my November wrap up, so grab a drink and grab a snack while I try to get through the 23 books that I read in the month of November in a minute or less for each book. Yes, I did read 23 books this month. Like I've said in previous wrap-ups, you can always tell my mental state based on how many books I read. I did do a lot of traveling this month, which actually worked in my favor because when you're traveling, you're just doing a lot of sitting and waiting at the airport. So I got to get in a lot of reading. When I was looking back at, I use the Bookmori app where it gives you like the calendar and like what books you read throughout the month. And when I look back at like the first books I read this month, it feels like such a long time ago. I think this is the first month in a while where November felt long. Like when I look back at the books I read like in the first week of November, it feels like I read those a long time ago. It feels like it's been forever. So hopefully my memory will work in my favor today. I've got my handy dandy 1 minute timer so that we hopefully are not here for an hour. And let's just get into it. Okay, the first book I read was on my Kindle, Hold Me Until Morning by A.L. Jackson. If you're new to my channel, A.L. Jackson is my favorite author of all time. So I needed to finish off this series. This is the last book in her Time River series. And it did not disappoint. It was a 5-star read. I don't know if you would call it a second chance necessarily, but these characters definitely have history together. It's a small town. She's a single mom. And he is definitely like golden retriever. There's also a good romantic suspense plot line in this because the female character is trying to get away from her ex-husband, and unfortunately he is not wanting to let her go for reasons that connect to his business basically. And part of the reason why she left him is because she knew he was kind of in some like shady dealings and she wanted to get away from it, but because she was involved in some of the shady dealings, she feels like she can't report him, so she's kind of like in a weird spot. And so she goes back to her small town where she's from and she moves in next door to the main character, which is a guy that she has had history with, and the story goes from there. I love how A.L. Jackson's able to do like a cute small town like single parent romance, but she still has like gritty like dark things that have happened to these characters in the past, and the way that she's able to just connect these two souls in a way that just like is perfection. Like I love her book so much, and I was definitely putting off this book. It was out a while ago and I just didn't want the series to be over, if I'm being honest. But she is already coming out with a new one. She has a Motorcycle Club romance she's working on, and then she was also doing a romantasy for the first time, so I'm very intrigued to see how that goes. But this was definitely a winner if you love single mom. Plus this is a plus size heroine, which is kind of nice. I don't think A.L. Jackson does a lot of plus size heroines. I was trying to think, this might be her first one. I don't know, don't quote me on that, but I had a great time with it. I'm way over my 1 minute timer. Are we surprised? Okay, next I read A Lady of Rooksgrave Manor by Catherine Moon. This was actually our book club pick. So if you're new to my channel, me and Katie have a book club. Her channel is Katie Reads, and every month we alternate between romances and thrillers, and we do a live show. Now October was kind of weird because our live show would have been on Halloween, but obviously like that's not the most convenient for everyone's schedules. So our October book club was actually like the second week of November, so I didn't read Lady of Rooksgrave Manor until November, even though it was our October book club. Yeah, time doesn't make sense, I know. But this is a monster romance with a reverse harem, like a literal reverse harem. So if you want to see our full thoughts, you can go to the live show. I'll link it up in the cards. This was definitely entertaining at the very least. Obviously, like, you don't go into a book like this expecting it to be like super plot heavy. It's mostly smut, but I loved it. I'm personally like a character driven story, so it doesn't bother me when there's a lack of plot. So I gave this 4.5 stars because honestly it gave me what I wanted. It did what it needed to do, and I'm not mad at it. Okay, then I went into, and clearly I was on my Kindle a lot at the beginning of the month. Then I went into Killer of Mine by Alexis Grace, also on Kindle Unlimited. And this is also kind of a reverse harem why choose situation, but this one is involving the FBI and serial killers. So in this one, the female main character is the daughter of a serial killer. And the three or four? sorry, it's been a while, the men that she develops a relationship with, they are in the FBI, in like the behavioral analysis unit. So Criminal Minds, basically, like. And I just loved the interesting plot for this one, because the filming character, she obviously grew up with her dad being a serial killer, but she's kind of like gotten out of that and is undercover. She has like a secret identity, and she is in the police force herself. I think she's a detective as well. And they get wrapped up into the same case, and it just kind of develops from there. It was really good. I wouldn't say this is like a die-hard favorite of mine, because some of the things that the author wrote, like her writing style, wasn't my favorite, and I think some of the romances could have been more developed, but I guess the story does continue. I don't know how, but I'm probably just gonna stop at this one. I don't know, but I gave it a 4-star because it was still really enjoyable. It was very unique in its plot, and I like that. It kind of gave me like Lana Myers vibes a little bit from the Mindfuck series by S.T. Abbey, except the female main character is like not as intense as Lana Myers. But it's a similar vibe where, you know, like the male love interest is in the FBI, and then she is like connected to these cases in a, you know, interesting way. So plot was really, really good, but it wasn't perfect, so I settled on a 4-star. Okay, then I finished Christmas at Fox Ridge by Bailey Hanna. I actually got this as an ARC. It's out now, so you can read it now, but this is her Christmas novella, and it was so good, you guys. This is actually involving a female main character who is, she does like not safe for work illustrations, and the male main character, oh, let me see if I remember what his, I can't remember the word, but he basically like takes care of like horse hooves. So he like fits horses for their horseshoes, and then he like grooms them, grooms their hooves and things like that. So it's a small town Christmas novella. It's definitely real spicy, and the characters kind of have history together. So they have their meet cute at a bar, and she's there for her best friend's, I think it's like a wedding shower or something like that, and she like spills her drink. He comes over and helps her. It turns out that he is her best friend's brother. So they do agree that night they hook up as a one-night stand, you know, just one time. We all know that never works out that way. Months go by, and he is trying to make money to save his ranch, and his sister convinces him to have like an Airbnb situation on his property with a cabin, and she convinces her friend to be the first guest, but she doesn't know that it's his ranch. So they reunite, and it's just a good, cozy but spicy holiday time. He's basically trying to give her like the best Christmas experience on his ranch, and he is one of those where he's a grump for everybody else except for her. Oh, it's great. It's great. I love Bailey Hanna's writing. If you love a good cowboy romance, she's your girl, trust me. Oh, I gave it a 5-star, by the way, if that wasn't obvious. Okay, next I read Double Apex by Josie Juniper. I hadn't heard anyone talk about this, but I found it on my Barnes & Noble, and I could not resist this cover. It's gorgeous, and it's a Formula One romance, but the female main character is actually an engineer that works for the same company that he drives for. I don't know what the right term is. Yeah, an engineer and a cocky race car driver go head to head in a spicy Formula One romance, and it was really good. This was the author's only book, I'm pretty sure, because I wanted to read something else by her. I loved her writing style, like very witty, great banter, super quippy, but like not in a cheesy way. Like, I don't know, she does sarcasm so well. The banter is really, really good, and it was also super emotional. Oh my gosh, like I was crying multiple times in this book. This book goes into grief. It also dives a lot into like what it's like for her being a female in this industry, which I also really liked those aspects of it. And then you have kind of like the cocky race car driver who's like misunderstood. This was really refreshing. I have not heard enough people talk about this book, and they need to. If you see this at your Barnes & Noble, please pick it up. This author is definitely going to be on my radar. I'm excited to see what other books she comes out with, because her writing was top tier. I haven't read a book with such witty writing in a really long time. Like, look at how many tabs I have. Like, this is just a sports romance. It shouldn't be anything substantial, but don't let that fool you. This really packs a punch. I gave it a 5-star. Next, I read a thriller. I read The Heiress by Rachel Hawkins. I actually had this checked out from my library, and I give it a 5-star. It was pretty good. This one kind of gives me Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo vibes. If you've read that book by Taylor Jenkins Reid, this is kind of similar because I don't want to say the female main character, but there's this like famous woman in this North Carolina town. She comes from like old money, and she was basically like an icon, right? She is the heiress of this town, and she has recently died, and people have like been curious about her life because she's had like 4 husbands who have all ended up dead. So there's a lot of rumors going around like she killed them all. And also like the house she lived in, there's just like rumors about that house, like this old house. Everyone else in the family like has bad luck, like those kinds of rumors. Well, her son has to come back, obviously, to take care of her estate, and he's been kind of estranged from her for a while, and you quickly find out why. There's a lot of family drama to unpack in this book, and this is really interesting because he's married, so it also goes into like his wife's point of view, like what it's like for her to have to like discover this whole side of her husband's life that she didn't even know about. So yeah, you're like really trying to figure out what's happening along with the characters, because obviously there's a lot that the wife doesn't know, and then even from the son's point of view, there's stuff about the other family members that he's not really 100% sure about either. Yeah, it's really cool. I actually really like this one. I gave it a 5-star, which I haven't given a thriller a 5-star in a really long time. And I debated on giving it a 5-star rating, but honestly, like, I was on the edge of my seat. I pretty much read this in one sitting, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 2 sittings, but it was really entertaining. I loved the setting, this kind of like old money, like town in North Carolina, like, and there's like mystery around the house, and like the woman who died, like her backstory is crazy. It's crazy. Next, let's go into a couple audiobooks I listened to. I was actually able to get the audiobook for The Woman in Me by Britney Spears from Hoopla, so I decided to listen to the audio. I know it's not narrated by her. She actually does a little author's note in the beginning. I didn't start my timer. Hold on. Okay, she actually does a little author's note in the beginning that she narrates, where she says like, which it makes sense. It's obviously hard for her to kind of like relive those things. It was already hard enough for her to write it. So for her to have to sit through it again and speak it, like she just wasn't comfortable with that. So she had someone else narrate it, but it really did feel like it was her talking, just with, because obviously like Britney Spears is not an author, right? Like she's a very talented performer and artist, but she's not an author. So it really was just like, it was almost like her diary entries, or like her just like talking to you as a friend. Like I think that was really eye-opening, and obviously like I'm sure some of you have heard some of the things that have happened in her life, but hearing it from her perspective is so crazy. Like definitely make sure you're in a good mental state before reading this book, because for me, like I'm personally an empath, so like hearing about some of these things, it was hard to get through, I'm not gonna lie. But I think overall this story is still really inspiring. There's actually one quote that I wrote down and that I saved in my notes app from this book. She said, "How powerful it can be when women defy expectations." And I think that pretty much sums up this book to a T. I personally gave it a 4-star just because sometimes it was hard to keep up with like the timelines and the pacing, which again, I can even fault her because like she's not an author, right? This was her just like sharing her life story, and she should definitely be commended for that because like it's not easy. But yeah, I gave it a 4-star. The next audiobook I listened to was Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I've already read this book, but my Hoopla app also had the graphic audios to go along with this, so I thought it would be good for me to kind of like reread it, and I'm really glad I did. There were things that happened that I totally forgot about. I don't know what frame of mind I was in when I read this the first time, but there were definitely parts that I was like, I don't remember that happening whatsoever. So I'm really glad that I reread it, and the graphic audio is really good. I know some people like don't like the graphic audio, but I personally think it's a really great way to listen to an audiobook. I feel like especially if it's a fantasy, because it really feels like you're immersed in the world, and it really feels like you're watching it as a movie, which I really, really liked. And the voice cast was great. Like I feel like the voices really captured the characters well across the board, even like the side characters, even the narrators for the dragons. I feel like the voices were just spot on. So I really recommend. I'm also probably going to do the one for Iron Flame this month because the 3rd book comes out in January. So it was perfect. It's This was still a 5-star read for me. I love this book. I don't care if that makes me a basic bitch. I do love it. Okay, next is a DNF. I tried to listen to the audiobook for Book Lovers by Emily Henry, and I think I decided, I decided to DNF it. This was just boring to me. Like, maybe I just didn't give it enough of a chance, but I think I got like 30% in, but it really just felt like it was about her and her own like baggage and past and like her relationship with her sister. I feel like it focused too much on that and not enough on the romance. Obviously, like, there was one scene where the two of them are together and the banter is really, really good. So I get why people like their relationship because it does have good banter. But I was just like, I've heard good banter in other books that are more interesting. You know what I mean? I don't know. This one just didn't do it for me. I did like Beach Read and I did like Happy Place. So I'm not giving up on Emily Henry altogether. I still want to read Funny Story, People We Meet on Vacation. But this one just was not for me. Just not for me. Next I read Haunted Ever After by Jen DeLuca. This was a 4-star read for me. I really liked how it was a setting in Florida, so it's kind of technically like a beach town or like a summer town, but because it's a haunted town, it also gave you like spooky vibes, so I really liked it. The main character is like a grumpy coffee shop owner, but you kind of find out he's not really that grumpy. And the female main character is new to the town. She's from Orlando, which is actually where I was born, so it was kind of cool to like hear about her talking about what it's like to go from living in a city like Orlando for most of your life to going to a small town that's like more remote-ish. So I definitely related to her in that aspect. But when she gets there, she realizes that her house is haunted, and so is most of the town. So it's basically her trying to uncover like what's going on with her house and the spirits there, as well as trying to fit in this new small town and kind of like wrap her head around what it's like. And of course, there's a love story in the mix, and it's really, really good. I think this is a solid one to read. Like, this was perfect for me because I was kind of in a weird situation where the day after Halloween, I went on a trip to Puerto Rico. So I was like in kind of like a fall mood, but I also wanted something beachy to read around my vacation. So this was a good one to pick up. I was technically back from Puerto Rico by the time I started this, but I was still kind of like wanting something summery. So this was a good happy medium, and I think it was really unique and perfect timing. Okay, next I finally read The Kingmaker by Kennedy Ryan, which this is a duology or duet. I'm not really, how do you tell the difference between the two? I don't know. The Kingmaker and The Rebel King. I read these two. Now, I will say, I had very strong feelings about the first book. I think the first book, I honestly contemplated giving it 5 stars, but it ends at a cliffhanger because it's a duet or whatever. You can see how I felt. So if you look at all the tabs in Kingmaker, right? Like, I was invested in their relationship. Basically, the female main character is a Native American and she lives on a reservation and she's trying to protect it. And the male main character is the son of this big like oil mogul. During a protest, his father basically like gets all of them arrested, and he is trying to protect her from the, I think there's like a canine unit that is sent to attack the protesters. So he's trying to protect her, so he also gets arrested with them. She doesn't know that he's related to this oil mogul. So it kind of goes from there. They never see each other again after that. Years go by. I think it's like 10 years later or something, because when that happens, I think she's only like 17. He is a few years older, so there's also that age gap. So at that point, obviously nothing like romantic happens. But then later on, they get reunited again and the love story develops. I love their story. It definitely gives you like Right Person, Wrong Time, like Maestro by Auden Dar, or like Love Letter to Whiskey by Candy Steiner. Like, it definitely gives you that kind of vibe, right? Like, where it feels like everything is trying to keep these people apart. It spans like their whole lifetime. I love romances like that, and it's on the cliffhanger. You can see the second book, I tabbed 2 things at the beginning and then I just kind of gave up. If this wasn't part of a duology or duet, I probably would have DNF'd this book because it just really pissed me off. I'm sorry. Like, basically, part of the cliffhanger, I'm not going to give you any spoilers, but the cliffhanger is like one of them is in danger. That's all I'm going to say. And you don't know like how it's going to end or whatever. So I feel like the second book is mostly like you would think would be trying to get that person out of danger. But that happens pretty quickly in the second book, so then I feel like the whole rest of the book like wasn't necessary. I don't know. I think it's just really hard for me to get into duets or duologies because more times than not, I am convinced that you could just do it in one book. Like, I feel like they just add extra things to drag it out so they can get 2 books for more money. Like, I'm fully convinced that's really the only reason why people write duets or duologies. And I will die on that hill. So the first book I gave like 4.5 stars because I really, really loved it. I was invested. The second book, I would probably give 2 stars just because it like really pissed me off and I really wanted to DNF it. But I powered through just because I feel like I couldn't leave it unfinished. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's probably an unpopular opinion. Leave a comment down below. Like, how do you feel about duets or duologies? Like, is it just me? Or does it feel like it's just a total waste? I don't know. Okay, then I totally binged the Reynolds Protective Group series by Dr. Rebecca Sharp. This series has been on my radar for a while, okay? But specifically because the last book in this series, everyone says is inspired by Spencer Reid, or just like Spencer Reid from Criminal Minds, right? And he's a great character. I love him, but his book is the last book in the series, so I obviously put it off for a long time because it's like, well, I have to read 4 books just to get to it, you know what I mean? But I saw a reel from the author, and she basically revealed the fact that this series she wrote because she wanted to give all of the male main characters from Criminal Minds their own like happily ever after or happy ending. And I was like, wait, so all of them are like Criminal Minds inspired. The first one is about Hotch, or inspired by Hotchner. The second one was inspired by Will, which is JJ's husband. And then the third book is inspired by Morgan. And then the fourth book is inspired by Dr. Spencer Reid. I was like, say no more, I'm reading this immediately. So I binged the whole series on my Kindle. It was fabulous. I guess I'll talk about each book individually. So let's start with Archer. So like I said, this one is inspired by Hotch. And in this one, the female main character, she's in the witness protection program because her dad was part of the Irish mafia. And he decided to be kind of like an informant to the FBI. So they put him into like protective custody, witness protection, whatever. And while she is in that program, during the part where her dad has to testify, she's under like constant supervision from the police. Archer is the one who is tasked to protect her, and the story just kind of goes from there. I don't want to spoil anything, but this one is actually really emotional. I liked it a lot. The only thing I will say is I felt like the dirty talk that Archer has was very out of character for how I would picture Hotch to be. So it's kind of on me, but at the same time, like, she did say he's inspired by Hotch, so like that part was kind of weird for me to get around. So I gave this one a 4.5 star. But other than that, it was great. There's also a tattoo scene. That's all I'm gonna say. So the second book, Hunter, is inspired by Will and JJ, I guess. So in this one, the female main character, she is in their small town and she's trying to look for a new job. So she ends up being kind of like the communications liaison for this protective group. I didn't even say that in the first book, but after the male main character in the first book kind of gets out of the police force, they make their own like security company or like protective agency or whatever. So she's gonna be working for them, but she has a bad past with like a workplace romance drama. So she is very adamant about like not being with anyone in her workplace. But her and Hunter have had feelings for each other since the first book. Like, you get little snippets of how they interact with each other. And this man is such a simp for her. It's amazing. It was so good. I gave this 4 stars. This one was also really cute because the female main character is really into reading romance books. So he like joins the book club for her, but he's dyslexic, so he listens to them on audio just so that he can like, you know, be included in something that she likes. It was really sweet. I feel like the plot of the first book was better, so that's why I gave this one a 4 star, whereas the first book was 4.5. But it was still really, really sweet. I liked it. The third book actually ended up being my favorite, which is a surprise because it is about Morgan, and I love his character from Criminal Minds. I keep saying about. You know I mean inspired by. It's fine. Inspired by Morgan from Criminal Minds. And he's a great character, you know, kind of like the playboy type, the one who's always like making jokes, like doesn't seem like he takes things really seriously, but he really does. Well, this is an accidental pregnancy romance, and that is usually my least favorite trope. I know. But I think I liked this one even more than I liked Reid's book, which is the last book. yeah, it was really good. And this one, the female main character, she is the daughter to this guy who owns like a bunch of big hotels in the small town that they're in, which is outside of like Montana. And she is trying to take over her own hotel, but she's recently found out that she's pregnant, and the guy who's gonna be her bodyguard is the father. They had a one-night stand like months before, they didn't even know each other, and now they're reunited, and he realizes that that's gonna be his kid. So it's really, really good. This is just such a good time. I gave this one 5 stars. I couldn't resist. And then we go into the last book, the one I was most excited for, Ranger. Inspired by the great Dr. Spencer Reid. Extremely smart. He's a genius, has multiple degrees. He has, is it an eidetic memory? Is that how you say it? He can read like super duper fast, and he just like is great at ingesting and remembering information. And the female main character is actually the author of the romance books that the female main character in the second book read. And she's coming to this small town to kind of like get away from this recent scandal that's happened in her life. She broke off an engagement, and it's kind of like this big deal, and a lot of her fans were like giving her a hard time about it, and she's having trouble writing her next book. So she goes to this small town to try and get away from it all, and she ends up staying in this like rental that Ranger set up for people to rent as like another source of income, because he's still living with his mom. Oh my god, the dirty talk in this book is very interesting, but it's so applicable to what this character is like. It's not really like dirty talk, it's like nerdy dirty talk. I don't know how to explain it, okay? He basically uses like the facts and the things that he's learned, like he's like teaching himself things about sex, like to try and be good for her, and the way that he's able to like make that hot instead of like desperate, I don't know how to explain it. Just don't listen to me explain it, because I feel like it's not going to make sense, but if you read it, you'll know. It was honestly surprisingly hot. Yeah, it was really good. I also gave this one 5 stars, just because like I do have a soft spot for this like type of character that's more like on the nerdy side, like very different from your standard like alpha male, but he is like protective in his own way, you know what I mean? So it was still really, really cute. I liked it a lot, and plus I loved like the female main character in this one. I think she was my favorite female main character, so this still stood out in the series for me. Okay, next I read Lost and Lassoed by Lila Sage. This is the 3rd book in her Rebel Blue Ranch, is that what it's called? Yeah, Rebel Blue Ranch series. So as you can tell by the cover, this is a cowboy romance, and this one you have been anticipating since book 1, where these two characters, the female main character is the best friend of the girl in book 1, and then this is the brother of the girl in book 1, and they have been at each other's throats since the beginning. They have not liked each other and this is going to be kind of like a forced proximity situation, where she has recently been out of a job and she needs some source of income for the summer, and he is a single dad, and he has been co-parenting really well with his daughter's mother, because they were friends, so they've had a good relationship co-parenting, but the mom has to go out of town for her job, so he is basically gonna have like full custody of his daughter for the first time for the entire summer, and he's also like trying to be in charge of this ranch, so it's like really hard for him to kind of juggle everything. So he agrees to hire Teddy to be the nanny for his daughter. Yes, this definitely gives Heartless by Elsie Silver vibes, I will say. But I think this one is unique in the fact that these characters have history together, whereas in Heartless by Elsie Silver, they had just met each other by the time she's going to be his nanny. So I think this does add an extra layer to it. Plus, like, you're already invested in these characters because it's the 3rd book in the series. I just love the setting of this book. It was honestly a great pick-me-up. It was exactly what I needed. I gave this a 4.5 star. It still doesn't beat Done and Dusted, which is the 1st book. That's still my favorite, and that's still like my top tier, one of my favorite cowboy romances of all time. But this one was still really, really good. Definitely emotional when they start being around each other and they realize like how helpful they are to each other. The way that they're kind of like able to kind of peel back the layers, like, oh well, maybe I don't have to hate you. I don't know, because I feel like sometimes enemies to lovers or hate to love, it doesn't really make sense. Like, why all of a sudden did you change your mind? You've hated them forever, you can't just get rid of all that hate. But I feel like Lila Sage handled it really, really well. So that's a winner in my book. Next, I wanted a quick hockey romance, so I went into Body Check by Elle Kennedy. This was a pleasant surprise to find in my Barnes & Noble because this is actually the first hockey romance that she ever wrote, like way before she wrote the Off Campus and the Briar U series that she is famous for. This got picked up by Harlequin. They reached out to her and they were like, hey, like, why don't we like freshen this up a little bit and republish it? And I'm so glad they did. This was really, really good. What is it about Elle Kennedy? Like, there should be nothing groundbreaking about this book. This should be just your regular schmegular. She's the daughter of the owner of the team and he's a player on the team. Like, oh, it's forbidden, whatever, hockey romance, yada yada, it's cute, whatever. No. Like, how does she do it? I really don't know. Something about Elle Kennedy and hockey, they go like this. And I dare say, I think this is better than the newer hockey romances that she wrote. I love those, don't get me wrong. They're some of my favorites. But if you've read Elle Kennedy's other series that's older, where it's about like the Navy SEALs, I can't remember what it's called. I don't know, she has a series about Navy SEALs who like share women sometimes. Those aren't as plot heavy, like they're mostly like smut, but there's just something about those men that are just like different. Like they're very like comfortable in their sexuality, but they're also like kind of alpha, but very like nurturing at the same time. I don't know, if you've read those books, you know. If you know, you know. If you don't know, you should read them. But I digress. I think this is the perfect mix of like that series that she wrote back in the day with her new hockey romances. I feel like this is like the perfect happy medium that everyone should read, whether you've read her other books or not. It's especially interesting too because this is one where the male main character previously has been a player and he has just decided that he's done with that life and he wants to settle down, whereas the female main character is the opposite. She's always been a relationship girl, but she decides, you know what, I'm gonna have a one-night stand because I've never done anything like that before and I deserve to just have a fling. And that's when they meet up and have the one-night stand, and she's good with it. She's ready to just be done, but he's like, no, like I want more. So I don't know, it was really good. It was different, but at the same time like what I needed, because I just wanted like a hockey romance and it delivered. Okay, then let's go into, okay, these are out of order, please hold. Next, I binged the Dream Harbor series by Laurie Gilmore. So I read The Pumpkin Spice Cafe, The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, ooh, don't drop it, and The Christmas Tree Farm. These were perfect to read in the month of November because it gives you like the cozy fall vibes and it kind of transitions into the winter Christmas vibes. So the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore does take place over the summer though, so that was kind of confusing at first. Okay, that was inevitable, I guess. So let's just go through them really quickly. I think I gave all of them like 4 to 5 stars depending. So the first book, Pumpkin Spice Cafe, I gave 5 stars. Oh, I guess I gave all of them 5 stars actually now that I'm looking at it. Yep, I sure did. Okay, Pumpkin Spice Cafe, if you like Gilmore Girls, I'm recently watching Gilmore Girls for the first time. I just finished season 1 and I feel like that was the perfect thing for me to do before reading this book because the male main character is Luke from Gilmore Girls personified in a book. That's not the right word, he's already a person, but you know what I mean. He is grumpy, except the only difference is he is a farmer, and then this one she owns the coffee shop, so like there's a difference there. But his personality, the way he acts, like his emotional baggage, his backstory, like very similar to Luke, okay? And her dedication says it all. She says, if you ever wish you lived in Stars Hollow or that Luke and Lorelai would just get together already, then her books are definitely for you. And I agree with that. This even has like the fun small town where they have like the crazy town meetings. The people in the town are like trying to meddle in everyone's business. It's honestly great. This does give like cozy mystery vibes as well, where at the beginning of the book she's convinced that there's like someone trying to break into her cafe at night, or there's some kind of like ghost or spirit or something. And the mayor of this town, the reason why it's called Dream Harbor is because the mayor of the town throughout all the history has always been able to like see the future about things or like make town decisions based on his dreams. So this mayor claims that he had a dream where Luke is the one who helped Lorelai find, I said Lorelai and Luke, those aren't their names, Jeannie and Logan. The mayor of this town says that in his dream, Logan is the one who saved Jeannie from the ghost in her cafe or whatever. So he's kind of tasked with like helping stake out her cafe to figure out what's going on. He has previously been burned by a relationship with an out-of-towner, so he's kind of like hesitant to get close to her because he's worried about getting his heart broken again. It's great. It's great. I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. It was exactly what I wanted. Then Cinnamon Bun Bookstore. I don't know if this is connected to the Gilmore Girls series at all, because like I said, I've only watched season 1. So these characters didn't scream Gilmore Girls in any way to me, but it could be because I haven't gotten far enough. Maybe they do. But in this one, the female main character, she works at the bookstore, and the male main character is a fisherman in the town. In this one, she's the one who's been in the town for a long time. She's actually the daughter of the mayor. And then the male main character is new. He's kind of like a drifter who has been in the town for a little bit. And he is known for being a player. And she's kind of like the safe, boring bookworm. And she starts discovering clues in the books in her bookstore. People are like moving the books or putting them in like weird disarray. And then when she pulls the book out, certain lines are highlighted. The male main character is going to help her figure out like what's going on with these little riddles that someone is leaving her. So this was great because it also kind of involves like, it kind of reminds me of like the lessons trope, because she's not a virgin, but he's obviously more experienced than her, and it definitely is more of like him being the adventurous one, her being the safe one, and him trying to like break her out of her shell. And he has been pining after her for a long time, but she doesn't think that's true because she's like, well, he sleeps around, like he obviously can get any woman he wants, like why would he want boring old me? It was honestly really cute. It's definitely like good girl, bad boy, opposites attract. But he starts reading books because of her, and it was super cute. Yeah, it was a great time. This is definitely the spiciest of the 3, I will say. And I loved it. So, okay, next and last, certainly not least, we have the Christmas Tree Farm. I thought this was going to be my least favorite because reading the blurb, it's very much like the female main character hates Christmas, but she has to run this Christmas tree farm. And then he's going to come in and he's kind of like the fixer, but this kind of gives like hate to love energy. And that's not usually my favorite trope, but honestly, this one ended up being my favorite. The male main character kind of gives me similar vibes to if you've read Window Shopping by Tessa Bailey, where on the outside he seems like the female main character even calls him like Clark Kent, like he just looks like the perfect like put together guy. And she's usually more of like going for like the bad boys, so she doesn't want anything to do with him. She's normally like really irresponsible, but she's trying to turn it over a new leaf and kind of like be independent. But he is a fixer. Like he's used to women only needing him when they need something from him. So he kind of has to like unpack that, because she's like, no, I don't want you to stay just because you feel like you have to fix things for me. Like that's not your only purpose in life. So he kind of goes on his own like emotional journey through that and kind of unpacking that, which I found really great, because I feel like most of the time the male main character is not as in tune with their emotions, and I think sometimes it's usually about like the female main character working through things and not the male. So I thought that was like a nice way to change it up. But yeah, plus it gave like the great Christmas vibes, right? Like it's a Christmas tree farm, like it's the perfect setup for the holiday season. And yeah, I think this one ended up being my favorite. I really do. Okay, then I went into Smoky Darling on my Kindle. This was my book club pick with Katie for the month of November. I will also link the live show up above. We wanted to go back to S.J. Tilly. We started our book club reading Dawn by S.J. Tilly, and we missed her. We did. So we went back to our roots, and I'm very glad that we did. It was a good time. I also read Latte Darling. I kind of talk about my feelings about both books in the live show, so I'm not going to spend too much time here. Like I said, the live show will be linked. But basically Smoky Darling and Latte Darling both take place in this small town in Minnesota. And in the first book, it's more about like characters who have history together because she's had a crush on him since she was younger. There's like an 8-year age gap in the first book, and they're reunited later on in life. And this one definitely has like S.J. Tilly like unhinged plot going on. The second book, however, Latte Darling, that one has a very large age gap. That's a 20-year age gap. If you're a Daddy Kink lover, you're gonna love this one. I like the characters more in this book, I will say, but I feel like the plot was better in book 1. So I gave book 1 4.5 stars, and then I gave book 2 4 stars. I ended out the month with The Holiday Switch by Tiff Marcello. This is a YA holiday book that I picked up at my library. I went to my library specifically to find holiday books because I'm definitely in the holiday spirit pretty early on, which is good. And this one was really, really cute. I gave it a 4-star. Is there anything groundbreaking? No. But I still think it was cute and wholesome and perfect for the holiday season. So in this one, the female main character, she lives in this small town called Holly in New York, and it's they basically have taken on this whole holiday persona because they were featured as the set for this like famous Christmas movie back in the day, and they've kind of like capitalized on that. And she works for the inn at this town where the movie literally took place. And she's also really big into reading. We love a book girly. She has her own book blog where she like posts about the books that she reads, things like that. She is in her senior year of high school. She's about to graduate to go to college, and she's very like type A. Like she has everything planned out, and she's trying to save up as much money as she can for her college experience while she waits to see like how much financial aid she's going to get and things like that. She wants to pick up extra shifts at the end, but unfortunately her boss told her that she already gave those hours to a new person, her nephew, who's gonna come stay there for the holiday season. And that's our real main character. So obviously at first she like hates him and she's mad that he took her hours away, and she also has to train him. He's not really that invested in the job. He's just kind of there, and she's just like, what are you doing? Why can't you just follow my instructions? But he actually has some really great ideas for like ways to make things better. So it's about kind of like her like not being as stubborn and set in her ways and her lists and her spreadsheets. Partway through the book, they end up accidentally switching phones, hence the holiday switch, and they find out some secrets about each other, and it kind of goes from there. I really like this one. I also think it had great cultural representation. It even talks about like diversity in a small town and diversity in media and things like that. It was cute, and honestly, what more could you ask for when it comes to a holiday book? That's really all you need. All right, we did it. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything. Yep, those are all 23 books that I read in the month of November. That was a doozy. But hopefully you guys enjoyed. Give this video a like. Leave a comment down below telling me your favorite book that you read in the month of November. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss my future videos. And I'll see you next time. Bye.